Chapter 1. Characteristics of Principle-Centered Leaders. From study and observation, and from my own strivings, I have isolated 8 discernible characteristics of people who are principle-centered leaders. These traits not only characterize effective leaders, they also serve as signs of progress for all of us. I will briefly discuss each in turn. They are continually learning. Principle-centered people are constantly educated by their experiences. They read, they seek training, they take classes, they listen to others. They learn through both their ears and their eyes. They are curious, always asking questions. They continually expand their competence, their ability to do things. They develop new skills, new interests. They discover that the more they know, the more they realize they don't know. That as their circle of knowledge grows, so does its outside edge of ignorance. Most of this learning and growth energy is self-initiated and feeds upon itself. You will develop your abilities faster by learning to make and keep promises or commitments. Start by making a small promise to yourself. Continue fulfilling that promise until you have a sense that you have a little more control over yourself. Now take the next level of challenge. Make yourself a promise and keep it until you have established control at that level. Now move to the next level. Make the promise. Keep it. As you do this, your sense of personal worth will increase. Your sense of self-mastery will grow, as will your confidence that you can master the next level. Be serious and intent in the whole process, however, because if you make this commitment to yourself and then break it, your self-esteem will be weakened, and your capacity to make and keep another promise will be decreased. They are service-oriented. Those striving to be principle-centered see life as a mission, not as a career. Their nurturing sources have armed and prepared them for service. In effect, every morning they yoke up and put on the harness of service, thinking of others. See yourself each morning yoking up, putting on the harness of service in your various stewardships. See yourself taking the straps and connecting them around your shoulders as you prepare to do the work assigned to you that day. See yourself allowing someone else to adjust the yoke or harness. See yourself yoked up to another person at your side, a coworker or spouse, and learning to pull together with that person. I emphasize this principle of service, or yoking up, because I have come to believe that effort to become principle-centered without a load to carry simply will not succeed. We may attempt to do it as a kind of intellectual or moral exercise, but if we don't have a sense of responsibility, of service, of contribution, something we need to pull or push, it becomes a futile endeavor. They radiate positive energy. The countenances of principle-centered people are cheerful, pleasant, happy. Their attitude is optimistic, positive, upbeat. Their spirit is enthusiastic, hopeful, believing. This positive energy is like an energy field or an aura that surrounds them and that similarly charges or changes weaker negative energy fields around them. They also attract and magnify smaller positive energy fields. When they come into contact with strong negative energy sources, they tend either to neutralize or to sidestep this negative energy. Sometimes they will simply leave it, walking away from its poisonous orbit. Wisdom gives them a sense of how strong it is and a sense of humor and of timing in dealing with it. Be aware of the effect of your own energy and understand how you radiate and direct it. And in the middle of confusion or contention or negative energy, strive to be a peacemaker, a harmonizer, to undo or reverse destructive energy. You will discover what a self-fulfilling prophecy positive energy is when combined with the next characteristic. They believe in other people. Principle-centered people don't overreact to negative behaviors, criticism, or human weaknesses. They don't feel built up when they discover the weaknesses of others. They are not naive, they are aware of weaknesses, but they realize that behavior and potential are two different things. They believe in the unseen potential of all people. They feel grateful for their blessings and feel naturally to compassionately forgive and forget the offenses of others. They don't carry grudges. They refuse to label other people, to stereotype, categorize, and prejudge. Rather, they see the oak tree in the acorn and understand the process of helping the acorn become a great oak. Once, my wife and I felt uneasy about the labels we and others had attached to one of our sons, even though these labels were justified by his behavior. By visualizing his potential, we gradually came to see him differently. When we believed in the unseen potential, the old labels vanished naturally, and we stopped trying to change him overnight. We simply knew that his talent and potential would come in its own time, and it did, to the astonishment, frankly, of others, including other family members. We were not surprised because we knew who he was. Truly, believing is seeing. We must therefore seek to believe in the unseen potential. This creates a climate for growth and opportunity. Self-centered people believe that the key lies in them, in their techniques, in doing their thing to others. This works only temporarily. If you believe it's in them, not in you, you relax, accept, affirm, and let it happen. Either way, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. They lead balanced lives. They read the best literature and magazines and keep up with current affairs and events. They are active socially, having many friends and a few confidants. They are active intellectually, having many interests. They read, watch, observe, and learn. Within the limits of age and health, they are active physically. They have a lot of fun. They enjoy themselves. They have a healthy sense of humor, particularly laughing at themselves and not at others' expense. You can sense they have a healthy regard for and honesty about themselves. They can feel their own worth, which is manifest by their courage and integrity and by the absence of a need to brag, to drop names, to borrow strength from possessions or credentials or titles or past achievements. They are open in their communication, simple, direct, non-manipulative. They also have a sense of what is appropriate, and they would sooner err on the side of understatement than on the side of exaggeration. They are not extremists. They do not make everything all or nothing. They do not divide everything into two parts, seeing everything as good or bad, as either or. They think in terms of continuums, priorities, hierarchies. They have the power to discriminate, to sense the similarities and differences in each situation. This does not mean they see everything in terms of situational ethics. They fully recognize absolutes and courageously condemn the bad and champion the good. Their actions and attitudes are proportionate to the situation, balanced, temperate, moderate, wise. For instance, they're not workaholics, religious zealots, political fanatics, diet crashers, food bingers, pleasure addicts, or fasting martyrs. They're not slavishly chained to their plans and schedules. They don't condemn themselves for every foolish mistake or social blunder. They don't brood about yesterday or daydream about tomorrow. They live sensibly in the present, carefully plan the future, and flexibly adapt to changing circumstances. Their self-honesty is revealed by their sense of humor, their willingness to admit and then forget mistakes, and to cheerfully do the things ahead that lie within their power. They have no need to manipulate through either intimidating anger or self-pitying martyrdom. They are genuinely happy for others' successes and do not feel in any sense that these take anything from them. They take both praise and blame proportionately without head trips or overreactions. They see success on the far side of failure. The only real failure for them is the experience not learned from. They see life as an adventure. Principle-centered people savor life. Because their security comes from within instead of from without, they have no need to categorize and stereotype everything and everybody in life to give them a sense of certainty and predictability. They see old faces freshly, old scenes as if for the first time. They are like courageous explorers going on an expedition into uncharted territories. They are really not sure what is going to happen, but they are confident it will be exciting and growth-producing and that they will discover new territory and make new contributions. Their security lies in their initiative, resourcefulness, creativity, willpower, courage, stamina, and native intelligence, rather than in the safety, protection, and abundance of their home camps, of their comfort zones. They rediscover people each time they meet them. They are interested in them. They ask questions and get involved. They are completely present when they listen. They learn from them. They don't label them from past successes or failures. They see no one bigger than life. They are not overawed by top government figures or celebrities. They resist becoming any person's disciple. They are basically unflappable and capable of adapting virtually to anything that comes along. One of their fixed principles is flexibility. They truly lead the abundant life. They are synergistic. Synergy is the state in which the whole is more than the sum of the parts. Principle-centered people are synergistic. They are change catalysts. They improve almost any situation they get into. They work as smart as they work hard. They are amazingly productive, but in new and creative ways. In team endeavors, they build on their strengths and strive to complement their weaknesses with the strengths of others. Delegation for results is easy and natural to them since they believe in others' strengths and capacities. And since they are not threatened by the fact that others are better in some ways, they feel no need to supervise them closely. When principle-centered people negotiate and communicate with others in seemingly adversarial situations, they learn to separate the people from the problem. They focus on the other person's interests and concerns rather than fight over positions. Gradually, others discover their sincerity and become part of a creative problem-solving process. Together, they arrive at synergistic solutions, which are usually much better than any of the original proposals, as opposed to compromise solutions wherein both parties give and take a little. They exercise for self-renewal. Finally, they regularly exercise the 4 dimensions of the human personality: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. They participate in some kind of balanced, moderate, regular program of aerobic exercise, meaning cardiovascular exercise, using the large leg muscles and working the heart and lungs. This provides endurance, improving the capacity of the body and brain to use oxygen, along with many other physical and mental benefits. Also valuable are stretching exercises for flexibility and resistance exercises for strength and muscle tone. They exercise their minds through reading, creative problem solving, writing, and visualizing. Emotionally, they make an effort to be patient, to listen to others with genuine empathy, to show unconditional love, and to accept responsibility for their own lives and decisions and reactions. Spiritually, they focus on prayer, scripture study, meditation, and fasting. I'm convinced that if a person will spend 1 hour a day on these basic exercises, he or she will improve the quality, productivity, and satisfaction of every other hour of the day, including the depth and restfulness of sleep. No other single hour of your day will return as much as the hour you invest in sharpening the saw. That is, in exercising these 4 dimensions of the human personality. If you will do this daily, you will soon experience the impact for good on your life. Some of these activities may be done in the normal course of the day. Others will need to be scheduled into the day. They take some time, but in the long run, they save us a great deal of time. We must never get too busy sawing to take time to sharpen the saw, never too busy driving to take time to get gas. I find that if I do this hour of exercise early in the morning, it is like a private victory, and just about guarantees public victories throughout the day. But if I take the course of least resistance and neglect all or part of this program, I forfeit that private victory and find myself uprooted by public pressures and stresses through the day. These principles of self-renewal will gradually produce a strong and healthy character with a powerfully disciplined, service-focused will. Chapter 2. 7 Habits Revisited. 7 Unique Human Endowments. One way to revisit the 7 habits of highly effective people is to identify the unique human capability or endowment associated with each habit. Those associated with habits 1, 2, and 3 are primary human endowments, and if those endowments are well exercised, secondary endowments are bequeathed to the person through the exercise of habits 4, 5, and 6. And the endowment associated with habit 7 renews the process of growth and development. The primary human endowments are 1. Self-awareness or self-knowledge, 2. Imagination and conscience, and 3. Volition or willpower. The secondary endowments are 4. An abundance mentality, 5. Courage and consideration, and 6. Creativity. The 7th endowment is self-renewal. All are unique human endowments. Animals don't possess any of them, but they are all on a continuum of low to high levels. Associated with habit 1, be proactive, is the endowment of self-knowledge or self-awareness, an ability to choose your response, responsibility. At the low end of the continuum are the ineffective people who transfer responsibility by blaming other people, events, or the environment, anything or anybody out there so that they are not responsible for results. If I blame you, in effect, I have empowered you. I have given my power to your weakness. Then I can create evidence that supports my perception that you are the problem. On the upper end of the continuum toward increasing effectiveness is self-awareness. I know my tendencies. I know the scripts or programs that are in me, but I am not those scripts. I can rewrite my scripts. You are aware that you are the creative force of your life. You are not the victim of conditions or conditioning. You can choose your response to any situation, to any person. Between what happens to you and your response is a degree of freedom, and the more you exercise that freedom, the larger it will become. As you work in your circle of influence and exercise that freedom, gradually you will stop being a hot reactor, meaning there's little separation between stimulus and response, and start being a cool, responsible chooser, no matter what your genetic makeup, no matter how you were raised, no matter what your childhood experiences were, or what the environment is. In your freedom to choose your response lies the power to achieve growth and happiness. 7 Habits Maturity Continuum. Original Thought, Civilly 1991, Covey Leadership Center. Imagine what might happen if you could get every person inside a company to act willingly on the belief quality begins with me, and I need to make my own decisions based on carefully selected principles and values. Proactivity cultivates this freedom. It subordinates your feelings to your values. You accept your feelings. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm upset. I accept those feelings. I don't deny or repress them. Now I know what needs to be done. I am responsible. That's the principle, I am response-able. So on the continuum, you go from being a victim to self-determining creative power through self-awareness of the power to choose your response to any condition or conditioning. Associated with habit 2, begin with the end in mind, is the endowment of imagination and conscience. If you are the programmer, write the program. Decide what you're going to do with the time, talent, and tools you have to work with. Within my small circle of influence, I'm going to decide. At the low end of the continuum is the sense of futility about goals, purposes, and improvement efforts. After all, if you are totally a victim, if you are a product of what has happened to you, then what can you realistically do about anything? So you wander through life hoping things will turn out well, that the environment may be positive, so you can have your daily bread and maybe some positive fruits. At the other end is the sense of hope and purpose. I have created the future in my mind. I can see it, and I can imagine what it will be like. Animals can't do that. They may instinctively gather nuts for the winter, but they can't create a nut-making machine. Nor do they ask, why do I do nuts? Why don't I get someone else to gather nuts for me? Only people examine such questions. Only people have the capability to imagine a new course of action and pursue it conscientiously. Why conscience? Because to be highly effective, your conscience must monitor all that you imagine, envision, and engineer. Those who attempt to exercise creativity without conscience inevitably create the unconscionable. At the very least, they exchange their creative talents for canned goods, using their creativity, their applied imagination and visual affirmations to win material things or social rewards. Then they become hopelessly imbalanced. They may speak the lines of the life balance script, but in reality their constitutions are written on the fleshy tablets of their spleen. It is reaffirming to me to see that winners of the Academy Awards, for the most part, exhibit creativity with conscience. For example, Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves made a beautiful statement about Native Americans. The Academy knows that the entertainment industry has enormous influence, and with that creative power must come conscientious social responsibility. Practice using these two unique human capacities. First, see yourself going to the office this afternoon or home tonight and finding it in a terrible situation. The house is a total disaster. No one has done his or her job. All the commitments made have been unfulfilled, and you're tired and beat up. Now, imagine yourself responding to that reality in a mature, wise, self-controlled manner. See the effect that has on someone else. You didn't confess their sins. You started to pitch in. You were cheerful, helpful, pleasant. And your behavior will prick the conscience of others and allow the consequences agreed upon to happen. You just used two unique human capacities, imagination and conscience. You didn't rely on memory. If you had relied on memory or history, you might have lost your cool, made judgments of other people, and exacerbated conditions. Memory is built into your past responses to the same or similar stimuli. Memory ties you to your past. Imagination points you to your future. Your potential is unlimited, but to potentiate is to actualize your capabilities no matter what the conditions. In the book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist imprisoned in the death camps of Nazi Germany and World War II, tells how he exercised the power to choose his response to his terrible conditions. One day he was subjected to experiments on his body, and he discovered, I have the power to choose. And he looked for meaning. He believed that if you have a meaning, purpose, or cause, if you have a why, you can live with any what. The development of his professional life came out of that one insight. He was raised in the Freudian tradition of psychic determinism. He learned it was a lie. It wasn't based on science. It came from the study of sick people, neurotics and psychotics, not from the study of healthy, creative, effective people. He didn't go to his memory. He went to his imagination and conscience. You too can progress along the continuum from futility and old habits to faith, hope, and inner security through the exercise of conscience and imagination. Associated with habit 3, put first things first, is the endowment of willpower. At the low end of the continuum is the ineffective, flaky life of floating and coasting, avoiding responsibility and taking the easy way out, exercising little initiative or willpower. And at the top end is a highly disciplined life that focuses heavily on the highly important but not necessarily urgent activities of life. It's a life of leverage and influence. You go from victim to creative resource, from futility to hope and anchorage, and from flaky to disciplined, habits 1, 2, and 3. Habit 1 draws on self-awareness or self-knowledge. 2 draws on conscience and imagination, and 3 draws on willpower. These are unique human endowments that animals don't possess. On the continuum, you go from being driven by crises and having can't and won't power to being focused on the important but not necessarily urgent matters of your life and having the willpower to realize them. From primary to secondary endowments. The exercise of primary human endowments empowers you to use the secondary endowments more effectively. Associated with habit 4, think win-win, is the endowment of an abundance mentality. Why? Because your security comes from principles. Everything is seen through principles. When your spouse makes a mistake, you're not accusatory. Why? Your security does not come from your spouse's living up to your expectations. If your son, your husband, your friend, or your boss makes a mistake, you don't become accusatory, you look with compassion. Why? Your security does not come from them. It comes from within yourself. You're principle-centered. As people become increasingly principle-centered, they love to share recognition and power. Why? It's not a limited pie. It's an ever-enlarging pie. The basic paradigm and assumption about limited resources is flawed. The great capabilities of people are hardly even tapped. The abundance mentality produces more profit, power, and recognition for everybody. On the continuum, you go from a scarcity to an abundance mentality through feelings of intrinsic self-worth and a benevolent desire for mutual benefit. Associated with habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, is the endowment of courage balanced with consideration. Does it take courage and consideration to not be understood first? Think about it. Think about the problems you face. You tend to think, you need to understand me, but you don't understand. I understand you, but you don't understand me. So let me tell you my story first, and then you can say what you want. And the other person says, okay, I'll try to understand. But the whole time they're listening, they're preparing their reply. They're just pretending to listen, selectively listening. When you show your home movies or tell some chapter of your autobiography, let me tell you my experience. The other person is tuned out unless he feels understood. What happens when you truly listen to another person? The whole relationship is transformed. Someone started listening to me, and they seemed to savor my words. They didn't agree or disagree, they just were listening, and I felt as if they were seeing how I saw the world. And in that process, I found myself listening to myself. I started to feel a worth in myself. The root cause of almost all people problems is the basic communication problem. People do not listen with empathy. They listen from within their autobiography. They lack the skill and attitude of empathy. They need approval. They lack courage. Within their frame of reference, they say, what can I do to please that person? He has this high need for control. Wait a minute, I'm the manager in control. I didn't come to listen, I came to tell. When I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. The ability to listen first requires restraint, respect, and reverence. And the ability to make yourself understood requires courage and consideration. On the continuum, you go from fight and flight instincts to mature two-way communication, where courage is balanced with consideration. Associated with habit 6, synergize, is the endowment of creativity, the creation of something. How? By yourself? No, through two respectful minds communicating, producing solutions that are far better than what either proposed originally. Most negotiation is positional bargaining and results at best at compromise. But when you get into synergistic communication, you leave position. You understand basic underlying needs and interests and find solutions to satisfy them both. Two Harvard professors, Roger Fisher and William Ury, in their book Getting to Yes, outline a whole new approach to negotiation. Instead of assuming two opposing positions, I want that window open. No, closed. No, open. With occasional compromise, half open half the time, they saw the possibility of synergy. Why do you want it open? Well, I like the fresh air. Why do you want it closed? I don't like the draft. What can we do that would give the fresh air without the draft? Now, two creative people who have respect for each other and who understand each other's needs might say, let's open the window in the next room. Let's rearrange the furniture. Let's open the top part of the window. Let's turn on the air conditioning. They seek new alternatives because they are not defending positions. Whenever there's a difference, say, let's go for a synergistic win-win. Let's listen to each other. What is your need? Well, I'm in just the mood for this kind of a movie. What would you like? Maybe you can find a movie or some other activity that would satisfy both. And you get people thinking. And if you get the spirit of teamwork, you start to build a very powerful bond, an emotional bank account, and people are willing to subordinate their immediate wants for long-term relationships. One of the most important commitments in a family or a business is never to badmouth. Always be loyal to those who are absent if you want to retain those who are present. And if you have problems, go directly to the person to resolve them. If you refuse to badmouth someone behind his back to another person, what does that person know? When somebody badmouths him behind his back, you won't join in. For example, during times of death, divorce, and remarriages, there are typically many strained feelings in families over the settlements. Family members who feel slighted or cheated often say nasty things about other family members. Think how much pain and anguish might be spared if members of the family would adhere to two basic principles. 1. People and relationships in our family are more important than things. People on their deathbed never talk about spending more time at the office. They talk about relationships. And 2, when we have any difficulty or difference, we will go directly to the person. We are responsible for our own attitudes and behaviors, and we can choose our responses to this circumstance. With courage and consideration, we will communicate openly with each other and try to create win-win solutions. On the continuum, you go from defensive communication to compromised transactions to synergistic and creative alternatives and transformations. Associated with Habit 7, Sharpen the Saw, is the unique endowment of continuous improvement or self-renewal to overcome entropy. If you don't improve and renew yourself constantly, you'll fall into entropy, closed systems and styles. At one end of the continuum is entropy, everything breaks down, and at the other end is continuous improvement, innovation, and refinement. My hope in revisiting the 7 habits is that you will use the 7 unique human endowments associated with them to bless and benefit the lives of many other people. Chapter 3. 3 Resolutions. Every organization and individual struggles to gain and maintain alignment with core values, ethics, and principles. Whatever our professed personal and organizational beliefs, we all face restraining forces, opposition, and challenges, and these sometimes cause us to do things that are contrary to our stated missions, intentions, and resolutions. We may think that we can change deeply embedded habits and patterns simply by making new resolutions or goals, only to find that old habits die hard, and that in spite of good intentions and social promises, familiar patterns carry over from year to year. We often make 2 mistakes with regard to New Year's resolutions. First, we don't have a clear knowledge of who we are. Hence, our habits become our identity, and to resolve to change a habit is to threaten our security. We fail to see that we are not our habits. We can make and break our habits. We need not be a victim of conditions or conditioning. We can write our own script, choose our course, and control our own destiny. Second, we don't have a clear picture of where we want to go. Therefore, our resolves are easily uprooted, and then we get discouraged and give up. Replacing a deeply embedded bad habit with a good one involves much more than being temporarily psyched up over some simplistic success formula, such as think positively, or try harder. It takes deep understanding of self and of the principles and processes of growth and change. These include assessment, commitment, feedback, and follow-through. We will soon break our resolutions if we don't regularly report our progress to somebody and get objective feedback on our performance. Accountability breeds responsibility. Commitment and involvement produce change. In training executives, we use a step-by-step, natural, progressive, sequential approach to change. In fact, we encourage executives to set goals and make commitments up front, teach and apply the material regularly, and report their progress to each other. If you want to overcome the pull of the past, those powerful restraining forces of habit, custom, and culture, to bring about desired change, count the costs, and rally the necessary resources. In the space program, we see that tremendous thrust is needed to clear the powerful pull of the Earth's gravity. So it is with breaking old habits.